Hello and welcome to my review of the Legiones Astartes Typhon heavy siege tank for Warhammer the Horus Heresy. One of these models will cost you £70. It's the same price as the Spartan. It comprises of 221 plastic components, and that is 8 plastic components more than the Spartan. It's also the same price as the upcoming Cerberus tank as well. This is a complete plastic replacement over the full resin Forge World Typhon tank. I didn't pick up that Typhon tank on release, but I did unbox it and review it on the channel. Just type in Typhon siege tank unboxing and review, and it's on there. I reviewed that 6 years ago in December of 2016. Seems like a long time ago, but I really enjoyed that resin kit. I've got it with me, and we'll go through some size comparisons a little bit later on with the resin miniatures. That did cost me £109 at the time. So if we're looking at a retail price, you know, there's a £39 difference there from something 7 years ago. So I think that's still pretty good, that 7 years later, this is, I say, only £70, considering with the price of everything. Of course, you can pick one of these up for about 50 or so from a third-party seller. So there's even more saving to be had, and you can do that by using my Element Games affiliate link down below. And if you input the crystal code, you'll earn double the crystals, and you can use that for even more savings on top of your 20% on future purchases. I just thought I'd mention that you can get it a fair bit cheaper than the 70. So the format of this review, as usual, I'll have a good look at the tank. I did build it in live stream, well, most of it in the live stream. It is a bit of a project. If you've built a Spartan, it's going to be very similar, but without the front door area, the assault ramp and things. Then I'll go through the spare parts, some size comparisons, and then I'll go through all of the rules found in the Legiones Astartes army book. So let's have a look at the tank. It's a big tank. You know, it's same size as the Spartan. It's in a Spartan sized box as well. No change there. I did wonder whether they would release like a dual kit with this and the Cerberus, and yeah, I've looked at the Cerberus sprue, and it is, you know, the actual laser destroyer, neutron laser destroyer, it's a decent sized sprue. I don't think that they could have fit that sprue in with the actual Dreadhammer siege cannon as well in this box. I think they would have had to invent a slightly deeper box. I don't think it would have all fit in neatly. So we're really at the limits of these kind of heavy tanks in these boxes. But you know, now that they've got the plastic chassis and all the rest of it, they can just modify you know, the front, the sides. You know, they've got the blueprint for these Land Raiders with the Proteus Land Raider, the Explorator, this Typhon, the Cerberus, and of course the Spartan, which is fantastic, and I'd hope that they did that. So you may have also seen on Forge World that they are retooling some of the resin kits, so they're not completely turning them over to plastic. All they're doing for like the Falchion and the Mastodon and other tanks is that they're retooling this area here in resin, so that it's got these plugs, and it means that you can just hot swap the plastic sponsons from your other Horus Heresy tanks. Yeah, it's a bit disappointing. Hopefully we will get plastic tanks and versions of those at some point, but in the meantime, that's what we've got. So let's have a good look at this tank. It's a nice looking tank. You've got you know, different weapon options for the sponsons, the heavy bolters, the Volkite, you know, the usual stuff, the flamers, the las cannons, and so on. The front cannon is pretty decent. I have not glued this on yet because I just think it's going to be easier to spray and paint, and then, you know, paint this black or, you know, I should really paint it black actually, and then attach it with glue later on. There's a fair bit of movement in the cannon itself. You can raise it at a nice high tilt. You get your vehicle accessory sprue, which includes, you know, the Space Marines and things. I've put a Space Marine poking out of this one just because it's my chance to do that. He's got the binoculars. He's, you know, obviously given ranges out and things to the crew below, I would think. I'm definitely going to use another one of these on one of my other Spartans at some point too. I've equipped with the heavy bolters, but you know, if you've got any Predators, Kratos tanks, Sakarans, any of those sponsored weapons that you've used, you can hot swap with this, which is fantastic. Other than the main cannon on the front and the top of the Typhon compared to the Spartan is the side panels, like the hatchways. The only way to get into this tank, from what I can see, is just this top cupola, which is a bit odd, a bit limiting. I still think it would have been cool to have the side doors. I mean, honestly, how do they get the ammunition in? You know, how much crew do they have in there? Is there only 2 Space Marines or is there 3? I would think 3 minimum. You know, it does raise some questions that they haven't got doorways that they can just walk out. Maybe this moves to the side, I don't know, but it looks like it's bolted on, it's fixed on, and this top cupola is the only way of getting in. I don't know, maybe this comes out, but it just raises the question, how does one get in the tank and out of the tank? That's all I can think now that they've kind of squared these doorways off. It's odd, isn't it? It is odd. But anyway, other than like the practicality aside and things, I still think it's a pretty cool looking tank. It's a great project, great hobby. It'll take you a while, take you longer than you think. One of the reasons though is because of the tracks. Tracks do have a load of mold lines, like in between each track there's mold lines, so it's a bit more effort to remove them, and also I would advise you to remove them because you'll be able to see them from either side and you can't really correct it once you put the tracks on. I definitely prefer the plastic Rhino tracks in the sets, much easier to sort of clean up. Okay, so let's have a look at these spare parts then. They're right here. So I've got everything from the different kind of firing shield or whatever you want to call it, gun shield. This is actually for the Cerberus, so you get this particular sprue with these 2 shields in both of the kits, but this one has the cutout for the Cerberus. That's pretty much it from the Cerberus. You know, you've got this turret rotating pillar for the heavy bolters or las cannons for the Spartan. You've got these hatchways. I mean, nothing's stopping you from still putting them on there if you like that aesthetic. You don't have to block them off. You've got the Volkite, you've got the las cannons, you've got the little symbols and things. I might actually put these Aquilas on mine. I totally forgot. They're not on the other Typhon either, so yeah, there is that. We'll see. But yeah, then you've got the arms for some of the, and then you've got different arms and different accessories. Speaking of which, you do get your vehicle accessory sprue, which I still think they should include with every single Forge World kit as well. I don't know, maybe if they did that, they'd have to have like a little instruction booklet for this as well. I think they'd get away with not including one in, but maybe they have to include an instruction booklet to, you know, for all these accessories to put them on. I don't know, but yeah, you get the accessory sprue. So there's, you know, I've got loads of these now, but they're still pretty good. Your mileage may vary with what you're going to put on the tank. You know, you could put the multi-melter, the heavy flamer, you could put combi weapons on there, loads of different smoke launchers, and so on. But yeah, that's all your spare parts that you're going to get with this kit. On to the size comparisons. Well, I'd like to give you a size comparison first of all with the resin sister herself. She is right here. I'm not sure why the las cannons are metal, but I think I've swapped them with the Cerberus for the time being. I think Maxim said in the live stream that the resin one looks a little bit bigger, and I agree. I think it is just a little bit taller. It definitely seems bigger. I don't think that that's because of the cannon being more upright, but it definitely seems like a bigger vehicle, and it weighs a fair amount. It's pretty heavy, pretty chunky. This harks back to like the metal dreadnoughts and things. It's a heavy, thick tank. But there are some differences. There's differences in like bolt placement. There's differences in the way the cannon kind of looks and the cutouts and the supports and things for it. There are differences on the top as well, in terms of detail, where certain things are, and so on. And then you've also got another big difference, of course, which is the sides. You've got this all armoured up. This one just has the normal kind of Land Raider doors, and then the sponsons themselves, I magnetised mine, so all of my resin ones can interchange, so I'm not too fussed about not being able to hot swap them with the plastic kits. It's fine. All of these I can hot swap, and I'm not going to get rid of them, so I'll always have those options. But that's the big difference there, is that the resin kit kind of just had a hole there where you were either meant to sort of glue the weapon on and not have any movement, but I would always suggest putting a magnet in, and then you've got that option. But as I said earlier, the new resin kits will have this plug and socket mechanism, which is a much better alternative. It's a fantastic quality of life kind of upgrade that they included in the plastic kits as well to move them forward. So that's the differences really between the plastic and the resin. I'll just give you a difference between the Cerberus. It's probably going to fall off a lot because it's white tack and not blue tack. But there's the Cerberus. Again, Cerberus it looks bigger than the Typhon, but it's exactly the same size as the Typhon. It's got this front neutron beam laser, so it's more against anti-tanks. It can't really, it'll just fire in a straight line. If you need it to move it left or right, it's going to have to move the whole tank. But there you go. That's the differences there. Not really that many compared to the kit. Of course, when I get the plastic Cerberus, I will give you a comparison with that. Sort of a smaller kind of little brother to the Typhon, I've always thought, is the Vindicator. Here is the Vindicator next to the Typhon. This is going to be pretty much the same size as the plastic Vindicator that's coming out. You can see the differences in the cannon size. But all intents and purposes, same range apparently. Both got the 24 inches, which I always think this should have at least 36, maybe 48 if it doesn't move. But yeah, that's where the new Vindicator will size up. Other plastic Horus Heresy vehicles, though, of course, I've got the new Deimos pattern Rhino. So if you're thinking about getting one of these tanks and you want to know how big it was next to a Rhino, well, there's your answer. It's going to be the same size difference as with a Spartan. Just keeping up with that size, similar size comparison at the moment, let's show you a Predator. So similar sort of size, but if you had a Predator, that's where it goes. And then a little bit bigger, well, a fair bit bigger really compared to a Predator, is a Sicaran. So if you recently got the new Sicaran Venator, that's how the Venator and say like the Cerberus are going to measure up. Quite similar. The Sicaran is a fair bit bigger than the Predator. I'm not sure. I'd probably say the Sicaran's closer in size to the Spartan than it is the Predator, but yeah, that's up for debate. And then one of the biggest tanks that they released in the plastic Horus Heresy edition is the Kratos tank. all the sponsors and things are looking all a bit ski-whiff at the moment. But yeah, that's where it measures up. I've done comparisons with a Spartan and a Kratos before. They're very, very similar kind of length. And I think that the Kratos just has it in width, just by a little bit. You know, the tracks are pretty big. I think they're the new tracks only for the Kratos. The Sakaran has different tracks, and obviously so does the Spartan and things. But that's where it measures up next to all those tanks. Just a couple more size comparisons to go, and that's with some Space Marines. So here's some Horus Heresy ones. We've got the Mark III Iron Armour. We've got the Mark VI, which you may predominantly have now, you know, in all the kits and things. And then you've got the Mark IV. So that's where it measures up. Pretty big tank, even amongst all the Mark VI and Mark IIIs. You know, if you had a group of like 20 Space Marines, it's still going to attract attention until you get to the next stage of tanks, the Falchions and Fellblades, things like that. Final comparison I like to make is just with some 40k miniatures. Why not? And that is with the Primaris, Space Marine and Sly Marbo. So gives you an idea of where the Primaris is. I guess the new Terminators are going to be a very similar size to these Primaris as well. So that just gives you an idea, really. And this is my part of the review where I will go through all of the rules for the Typhon Heavy Siege Tank. You'll find it in your Loyalist or Traitor, Adeptus Astartes army book, and it actually comes under a Lord of War, which is very odd because it's the same size as a Spartan. I've always kind of classified it as super heavy rather than heavy, and I think a while ago Forge World also did classify it super heavy. But for whatever the reason, you know, it is a Lord of War, and that means you can either, you know, take one of these or a Primarch. Yeah, I think I'd rather take a Primarch, but you can take one of these if you wish as a Lord of War choice. It will cost you 425 points. It's the same price as the Legion Cerberus. It's got exactly the same profile as the Legion Cerberus as well. It's a movement of 10 inches, ballistic skill 4, front and side armour is all 14 and the rear is 13. Again, not sure why the rear armour is 13, unless it can be disconnected and ammunition be put in and things like that. The whole point about Land Raiders is that they are armour 14 all around, and from my reckoning, this has essentially got more armour, you know, on the sides than the Spartan itself. So I think that's ridiculous. You know, if you were using one of these against me, I'd let you have rear armour 14 because it's a Land Raider. That's the whole point of Land Raiders, is they have amazing armour all the way around, especially if you're going to spend 425 points on a Land Raider. You know, it essentially means that a Land Raider Explorator for 250 points, so 175 points cheaper, has better armour. So yeah, it's got the hull point 6 as well. It can't carry any Space Marines, of course. The war gear is a centerline mounted red hammer siege cannon. We'll talk about the profile of that in a moment. 2 sponsor mounted heavy bolters, a flare shield, smoke launchers. Special rules: Legiones, Astartes, and crushing weight. A Legion Typhon squadron may take 1 additional Legion Typhon for 410 points each. So, and that's the same for the Cerberus as well. So although it's a Lord of War choice, you can take 2 of them in that choice, which is pretty good, and you do get a little bit of a discount, but then it's going to be 835 points for 2 vehicles that have, I say, vulnerable rear armour, and you're basically paying it for 12 hull points, almost 1,000 points, which is a bit crazy. It may exchange both of its sponsor-mounted heavy bolters for 2 sponsor-mounted las cannons, 10 points per model, 2 sponsor-mounted heavy flamers for free, and 2 sponsor-mounted Volkite Culverin for 10 points per model. Any Legion Typhon may take 1 of the following. You've got Pintle-mounted twin-link bolter, 5 points, combi weapon for 10, heavy bolter for 10, heavy flamer for 5, multi-melter for 20, Havoc launcher for 15, and may also take 1 hull-mounted hunter-killer missile for 5 and searchlight for 5. So, other than the heavy bolters and maybe the pintle-mounted weapon, the main reason you're picking this up, other than a huge distraction for your opponent's firing, is that siege cannon. So, the Dreadhammer siege cannon, you'd expect it to be 48 inches? Maybe 36 inches? No, it's the same range as a Stormbolter, and the same range as a Vindicator, and the same range as the Demolisher cannon. It's 24 inches. There are bolt rifles that have a further range than this cannon. It's properly nerfed in this edition. Its strength. Okay, you can forgive the range. Okay, maybe you can't forgive the range, but even if you did, how about the strength? Surely the strength is more than the Demolisher cannon on the little Vindicator. No, it's the same strength. It's a strength 12 weapon. How about the armor penetration though, Super? It must be a 2. You know, it must be. No, it's a 3. Therefore, is it the same shell that they're loading into this as the Vindicator? Just like a tiny little artillery shell fires out of this massive cannon. That's what's going on in my head. The only difference between this and a Demolisher cannon, other than you have to spend 425 points on it, you don't get better armour than a Land Raider Spartan, and it can't carry any troops, and you're getting the same cannon profile, is that it's Ordnance 1 Large Blast 5 inches. So that's the only extra thing you're getting, an extra 2 inches. Now, a lot of you might be sat there thinking, don't underestimate an extra 2 inches. But on top of that, it is Rending 4+ instead of Rending 6+. It is Sunder and Brutal 4. So it does have the potential of knocking out a fair bit of damage with the Rending 4+ and the Brutal 4 with a 5-inch blast marker. But it's not the kind of Space Marine blob unit remover as it once was. There are no special rules on this Dreadhammer siege cannon than the ones I've just discussed. In the previous editions, the cannon used to ignore cover, so you didn't get a cover save. It was the ubiquitous siege cannon. It even says Dreadhammer siege cannon. It even says it's a Typhon heavy siege tank. But yet the shell doesn't ignore bunkers, doesn't ignore cover. I mean, for a siege tank with a siege weapon not ignoring cover, it is crazy. It really is. As I say, you might as well get a Vindicator, which is a siege tank in a way. But this is publicised all over that it is one. And I think that's a little bit sad, the way that this tank has gone. I think it should ignore cover. I think there should be a special rule where if it doesn't move, it can fire 48 inches like it used to, maybe even fire twice. I think it's lackluster, it's overpriced, points-wise. Actual price of the miniature, that's a tough one because it's a nice-looking tank, and in some ways there are upgrades to the resin kit, except for the amount of time it will take you to build, but the rules may put you off that price to begin with, and where it will fit in your army. Thematically and narratively, it looked great in an Iron Warriors army or an Iron Hands army, maybe even a Death Guard army, and possibly Imperial Fists as well. But in terms of its usability on the battlefield, I think now the Cerberus tank has more usage, and again, you know, if you're after a strength 12 24-inch range cannon, just pick a squadron up of Vindicators. They're not going to use up a Lord of War choice, so you can have another big tank like a Falchion, or even a Primarch. So although it's a nice kit and it does look great, the rules do let it down. They've done the Typhon bad with this edition, unfortunately. Hopefully next edition it'll get some decent rules. I mainly picked up mine to show you it, to show you the kit and to compare it with the resin one. Will I be getting another one? I'm not sure. Maybe thematically for the Death Guard, but the thing is at the moment I've got options to have this one for Death Guard as well. What do you guys think of the Typhon, of the kit itself, the rules, everything? Have you picked one up? Would you prefer to get a dedicated like anti-tank Lord of War like the Cerberus? Stay out of range more of some of the harder hitting weapons? Please do put your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. It'd be great to hear from you. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for watching. The Emperor Protects.